Okay, good morning, everybody. What we're going to work on today is an assignment called the Children's Book Homework Assignment. And the goal of this assignment really is to get you more familiar with Piaget's cognitive stages and Kohlberg's moral stages of reasoning. And so the directions of this assignment were to, utilizing the following picture, write a sentence or two as a short story describing it as a child would in each of Piaget and Kohlberg's stages. And so we're going to go through here, starting with Piaget, and answer them as a child in each of those stages would. So the first Piaget stage is the sensory motor stage. And in this stage, you remember that there's a sense of some object permanence that now Peekaboo really doesn't hold their attention as well. Because if you remember, when they're infants, there's no sense of object permanence, and Peekaboo's a lot of fun because if you cover your face, they automatically think you disappeared, and then it's magic when you reappear there. But at a certain point, they, kind of develop that, okay, just because you cover your face doesn't mean you're gone. And so they have that object permanence. Also, what's important about this stage is that they start to associate things through their senses. There's limited language, so it's really only what they can see, touch, taste, hear, and feel. And in this case, since it's a picture, it's mostly going to be based on visual. So in this case, a child might look at this picture and say, "Mommy, Daddy, horsey, sun," and that would be the extent of it. That would be all they'd be able to say in the sensory motor stage. There wouldn't be any really logical flow there. Which brings us to number two, the pre-operational stage. And in the pre-operational stage, now we're getting the initial stages of language. We're being able to apply some abstract thought to situations. Not very good at reasoning, but a little more detailed, certainly, than in the sensory motor stage. So someone in the pre-operational stage here might be able to say, "Mommy and Daddy are riding a horse." Not the most detailed story, but certainly, a child in the pre-operational stage would understand. The third of Piaget's stages is the concrete operational stage. And this is, marked by some logical thinking, the ability to understand conservation. And if you remember, conservation was one of those Piagetian concepts where a child who looks at a long, skinny cylinder and a child who looks at a short, fat cylinder can understand that they both can hold the same amount of water there, and so that people can be in a picture of them and they could be somewhere else, something along those lines. So a child in the concrete operational stage might look at this picture and say a prince and a princess are riding to their wedding at a castle. A little more detailed, certainly a little more abstract thought. The castle's not in the picture, for example, but they're able to picture it and add that into the story. Which brings us to the fourth of Piaget's stages, the formal operational stage. And this is actually the last of Piaget's stages. And this stage is marked by abstract reasoning. Things aren't concrete. There's gray areas. There's not necessarily black and white. So in this case, a child might look at the picture and say, the prince has kidnapped the princess from an evil ogre and a dragon that's trying to kill her and whisking her away to his kingdom to get away from her evil parents. It gets very detailed. There's lots of imagery and stuff you don't even see in the picture that they can begin to add. So that's kind of Piaget stages and how I hope this assignment would help you understand those. But now with number five, we move into Kohlberg's stages of moral reasoning. What is right and what is wrong, and how do people understand it? So we're going back to very young children here. We kind of got up into adulthood, late adolescence with Piaget's fourth stage, and now we're going back all the way to infants here. So with the pre-conventional stage, what we have is people are motivated by trying to avoid punishment, not necessarily doing what's right for the sake of doing what's right, but doing it because they don't want to get punished. And if you recall in class, I gave you the example of a baby who really wants a cookie. They don't go up and grab the cookie because they know they'll get yelled at or their hand slapped or something, not because they know it's closer to dinner, I better not eat a cookie. They just try to avoid the punishment. And if they could get away with it without being punished, they would eat that cookie. So you got people who are motivated by self-interest and avoiding punishment. So a child in the pre-conventional stage of moral reasoning, according to Kohlberg, might come up with a story that they're trying to get home on time so their mother won't yell at them, even though they are having fun playing. That's a good way to understand how a child in the pre-conventional would understand the picture. Now we move on to number 6, the conventional. And remember, the conventional is earmarked by decision-making based on getting people to like you, recognizing the necessity of laws for a functioning society, for example. So, in this, usually there are no, it's very concrete. It's against the law. It's not against the law would be how someone in this stage would understand it. And we're looking at early adolescence here. And so certainly kids are much more motivated at this age to be accepted socially. So the story they might write for this in the conventional stage is the princess is in love with the stable boy, but wants to be popular, so pretends to love the popular prince and is marrying him because the king made a law saying she has to. Something along those lines. Which brings us to number 7, the post-conventional. And in the post-conventional thinkers tend to reject the rigidity of laws. Laws should be changed, possibly not even followed if they're not good laws. Think the civil rights movement of the 1960s. Laws saying blacks couldn't eat at the same lunch counter as whites or ride in the front of the bus were bad laws that Martin Luther King Jr. and other civil rights leaders said, we have an obligation to not follow. You could argue that they were in the post-conventional stage of moral thinking, according to Kohlberg. So someone in this stage might even, come up with a story that says the prince and princess are in love and against their parents' wishes and orders are going to get married because love conquers all. Something along those lines would certainly indicate post-conventional thinking. Now, there are varying degrees of post-conventional thinking and ways to look at things post-conventionally. And one of these is what we would call a utilitarian sense, post-conventional utilitarian thinking stage. And utilitarianism basically is a moral philosophy that says the needs of the many outweigh the wants of the few, something along those lines. So in this case, with post-conventional utilitarian thinking in number 8, you might get a story that says the prince and the princess are from 2 rival kingdoms that are at war. They do not love each other, but pretend to be happy in order to secure peace and prevent thousands of deaths. So that would be a form of utilitarian thinking. Another form of post-conventional thinking might be ethical thinking, and we define that as right and wrong actions are taken because they are right in themselves, not because they help achieve other goals necessarily. So it's hard to find, things like this, like, your worst enemy trips, falls down, and breaks his leg. This guy wants to kill you, and it would probably benefit you to leave him there with a broken leg to suffer, but you choose not to because that would not be right. And so you help him up, help him get medical aid. This is an example of post-conventional ethical stage thinking. So a person in this stage, and notice I'm not saying child anymore because we're looking at an advanced stage well beyond late adolescence and adulthood. And so someone in this stage might say the princess is pregnant, and so the prince is marrying her even though he doesn't love her because a child needs a 2-parent family. Something along those lines. Whether you would agree or disagree, that would be their thinking and thus meet those stages. So that was all this homework assignment really was, really short. But the goal again was to get you familiarized with Piaget's concepts of cognitive thinking development and Kohlberg's concepts that go along with Piaget in moral reasoning, what is right and what is wrong. And hopefully we've done that with you here today, and that you can now complete this homework assignment on your own.